Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tiki Bar. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Aparna Muralidharan. She is the Senior Director of Revenue Operations at D-Scout. Aparna, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're lucky to have you. I was commenting before we got started about your greenery behind you. Have you always been a green thumb, or is this something new for you?
No, I am a black thumb. These are new plants, and I hope they're with me long term, but we'll see.
I have a vision of one day being like one of those people with the fiddle leaf fig and the good stuff behind me, but I too am unfortunately a black thumb. So kindred spirits. The first question that we ask everyone who comes to the Tiki Bar is, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
I love that question. I have always loved animals. And so as a kid, I wanted to be a zookeeper.
Cool.
In a way, Vops is kind of like a zoo. It can be chaotic and also rewarding. But yeah, definitely different than what I had envisioned as a child.
Okay. Fair enough. And when you were a child, were you, because I know you make music and also write poetry now, were you doing those types of creative things when you were a kid?
Yeah, definitely. So I was in choir, I did marching band, and I definitely wrote like angsty teen poetry as a child. I wish I could find some of those. They're very dramatic.
I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would track very well on LinkedIn. So you should get some of those out for sure. What was the first job that you ever had?
Okay, so I did a lot of babysitting as a child, so definitely that. But I also worked for this woman who lived across the street from me. She used to throw bar mitzvahs, so I was helping her organize her decorations and stuff. But my first like real job in high school was as a receptionist at a doctor's office, and that was really great. I loved helping people like solve their medical problems. I did a lot of like prior authorizations, prescription refills, things like that.
So did you go to a bunch of bar mitzvahs as a result of this?
She never brought me to a single bar mitzvah, and to this day, I have not been to one.
All right. Well, fingers crossed. Someone will hear this and think, all right, we got to get a barn into our bar mitzvah. So you then went on to NYU. Did you have any idea what you wanted to do after going to NYU?
So I actually wanted to be a dentist. I had worked at the doctor's office and I really liked the medical field, but I didn't necessarily want to be a doctor. So I was like, okay, this is kind of along that vein. So like applied for a bunch of dental schools and I got in. So I went to NYU for that. But I loved the econ classes that I was taking, and I didn't love the science classes that I was taking as much. So I switched my major.
Very cool. And are you from New York originally?
I grew up in Connecticut, but I've been in New York for 20 years now.
Okay. I couldn't tell from your profile. My wife is from Connecticut. She's from Stamford.
Yeah. I grew up not that far from there, maybe like 30 minutes away.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you go for dental school, the econ classes resonate a little bit more. It looks like you then started your career at Merrill Lynch, Common Desk. I'm curious if there was a moment that you had like a welcome to the professional world happening at either of those companies.
Yeah. So I worked at Merrill Lynch in 2008 and 2009 during that big financial crisis. That was a wild time. You go into the like job market kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But like I had six different managers in my short internship at Merrill Lynch. And it's because like they were like just getting fired left and right during the merger. So that was a hard dose of reality. And we definitely graduated into a recession, which was super challenging.
What's going through your head at that moment? Like you come in, all right. I mean, Merrill Lynch is a prestigious company. Get an internship there. That's really cool. I can't imagine the internship is that long that you have six managers during it. That's like what, one every couple of weeks?
Yeah, yeah, they kind of bumped me around. I was doing a pretty interesting project though. I was like putting together risk analyses, and so it was really like a boot camp. I got to learn from so many different managers on the different methodologies.
Well, that's cool. I read that you were kind of working in an administrative capacity when you started your career, but then you kind of had this like knack for analytics. Did you already know that you had this knack, or did that come out just through the exposure to the work?
So I've always been good at math. I did a lot of math in undergrad. I always excelled in it. I was great at math in high school, and my mom's a math teacher, so I knew whatever
Okay.
profession I was gonna get into would have like a lot of numbers in it. So I started as a kind of secretary at Common Desk. It was a five-person startup, but since it was such a small company, there was a lot of analytics that needed to be done. So I did a lot of their bookkeeping, and then from there, I started kind of growing into financial modeling. So I worked with a consultant there to help put together our financial model, and then I was maintaining that on a regular basis. I absolutely loved it. So I was like, this is my calling.
What did you love about it?
So this is nerdy, but I really liked like, taking large amounts of data and like distilling them into like short stories. And you can kind of like a lot of the times we would have a hypothesis and like try to find data that supported that. So like crafting compelling stories. Yeah, that was cool.
So I saw that it looks like you also did a degree in research methodology and quantitative methods. That seems to marry up with what you just said for me. Like, can you talk through like what your exposure was there and how that applied to your working career?
Yeah, so I got my degree at Baruch when I was working at Penguin. And at Penguin and Medidata, so it kind of overlapped both of those roles. It took me 3 years because I was doing it part time. It was basically I took that degree on because I was trying to get skills to up level my current positions. I was like, if I was better at doing data analyses, like this would help me excel in my career. So kind of the coursework that I did was all sorts of like operational analytics classes. I took a marketing analytics class where we learned how to use Qualtrics and like all these different marketing databases. I had an operational modeling class that kind of estimated different time components or Monte Carlo simulations and things like that based on like different softwares that they had. So it was a very technical degree. And I was working in kind of a technical field. So I really wanted to like up level my game there.
This is a very classic RevOps origin story coming from this like technical analytical side where you just have to solve these problems. So okay, you're moving up in your career. You're in Penguin and media publishing, and at this time, are you also doing things on the side? Because I know you produce music, or you DJ, and then writing. And I read that you were also in a Bud Light commercial, maybe moonlighting as an actress or something there as well.
In a band at that time. My band was called Waiting for Bobby. It was a glam rock band. It was so cool. We played all over different venues in Brooklyn and Manhattan. We had a residency at the Delancey. We played their New Year's Eve show. That was so
Sweet.
much fun. What else? The Bud Light commercial? No, that was a one off. I don't have experience in acting. I was kind of like just walking along the street with the coffee and I looked behind me and there were all these zombies and I was like, what's going on? I guess it was around Halloween, but they made me sign a waiver and they're like, you're in like Bud Light commercial that has zombies in it. I was like, okay. But then like months later, they released the clip on Facebook and like my friend tagged me in it. I was like, this is crazy. So that was just a random occurrence, random New York like delightful coincidence.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Who's Bobby in Waiting for Bobby? Can you say?
Bobby was my friend that was always late. So not too deep there, but yeah, never on time.
No, I love that. I love that. Okay. So you're growing as an analyst in media publishing companies, and at some point I read you wanted to make the switch into tech. And so you switch into sales operations eventually at Metadata. Was there a moment when you're doing that work where it clicks for you and you're like, okay, this is for me for sure?
Oh my gosh, that time that I switched into Medidata from Penguin is such a like turning point for me. So I actually had two job offers at the time, which was crazy because I had been looking for a job to leave Penguin. They were just going through a big merger and so they were going to do mass layoffs. So I had been looking for a job for a while and I got two job offers on the same day, and one was at the Met Museum and one was at Medidata Solutions. And I was like, this is two different paths. This is a crossroads. I chose Medidata Solutions because they were a biotech company and I had worked in a doctor's office. I wanted to help people and it just seemed like a really compelling company. And then like it's just so fast paced in tech. You get to get exposure to all different technologies. I learned a lot about business intelligence in a way that I probably wouldn't have had I stayed in like media or nonprofit.
That makes a ton of sense. And so maybe just take me through your time there, because I kind of understand the pull of that and why you selected it. It's like, okay, the pace is there. Presumably things are built out. It's more tech forward. But what was your actual experience from start to finish?
Medidata Solutions was a really great place to work, especially during that time. I was the first hire on the sales analytics team. So I was working with sales data from their reps. They rapidly grew their sales team. I think when I started, there was maybe 100 sales reps. When I left, they had like 400. I had been there for about 4 years. We grew out the sales analytics team as well. So there was 4 or 5 of us by the end, and we really built out like a reporting suite. So they didn't have much in terms of like weekly, monthly, quarterly reporting. It was a publicly traded company, so I got to put together the scripts for the earnings call. That was really rewarding because that's like a publicly facing documentation, and I could listen to it and be like, I put that together, I put that together. Yeah, yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm curious, was that your first exposure to salespeople? Because or at least tech salespeople? Because I was watching a presentation that you gave later on, and I was intrigued that it was really like empathetic towards sellers, and that selling is really hard. And you kind of noted that they were your ultimate customer, and so I appreciated that. And I was wondering where you were at with the sales operations relationship at that point in your career. Did you have any idea what the sellers were going through and how you're supposed to support them?
Yeah, so I had a very close relationship with a lot of sellers at Medidata. We supported them in a lot of their initiatives. And when things weren't working, we would have to pivot very quickly. And that meant that there had to be like a lot of enablement and changes in pricing and things like that that reps would have to adopt very quickly. So I really tried to be a partner to them, get on the phone, and like we developed real personal relationships there, especially because I worked supporting the compensation team as well. So there would always be like comp issues that we had to triage. And like, I always try to put myself in a rep's shoes and say, hey, like, what we're putting forward, is this fair? And they were remote before remote work was really a thing. They were in the field, they were at the customer, they didn't get the exposure to the office culture that I was embedded in every day. So um you know selling is hard, it's isolating, and they live for these moments where we all come together. So I just I really developed these bonds with them, and that made it easy to do my job.
That makes a lot of sense. Good on you for taking that approach. Okay, so go through your time at Metadata. Metadata is a sizable company, especially by the time that you leave. And it seems like you got pulled by the world of startups, by the world of kind of building from scratch. Can you take me through what intrigued you about that motion?
Yeah. So I had a lot of friends that worked in startups. And I've always been very entrepreneurial. I was the one that had like a lemonade stand. I always had a job growing up babysitting bar mitzvahs, so
Yeah.
I really wanted to be on the ground setting something up. I had experienced like hyper growth with Medidata. I had scaled them up, and it was a sizable organization. So I really got to see how revenue operations is set up from a best practice perspective. And I was like, I have these skills, I have this knowledge, and it's going to be very valuable to a smaller company. So that's what like compelled me to go into startups. And yeah, it's been super exciting.
Do you link that entrepreneurial spirit back to your time in the band, or I think you're DJing? I read now, and I'm curious because it's not what you think of when you think traditional entrepreneurial, but if you're going and getting a gig, or if you're going and having to advocate and sell your services, it is entrepreneurial for sure. I'm curious if you see any linkage there.
It's the same skill set for sure. I mean, like, you really have to market yourself. You have to go out there, you have to make connections, you have to get a network in place, you have to like kind of prove yourself, and you have to. So I did a lot of marketing as a band. I did a lot of booking for events as well, which meant like getting connections in the community, the scene in Brooklyn, as well as like right now I'm DJing often. So it's kind of like getting established with these like kind of grassroots movements to help push them forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you do get the service, or when you do get the gig, you're putting yourself out there, right? A salesperson on a call, you mentioned that they could feel isolated. Like I came up as a salesperson, and it's not only do you get isolated, but you have to develop this voice. And so I'm curious if you were always comfortable doing that through music, if it's something that you knew you could do as a child, or if it came later in life.
So I did put myself out there as a child. I was in a lot of like student groups, student activist groups. I was also in like marching band, as I said. So I think that like, you have to kind of put yourself in an uncomfortable position to be in front of people. I did like the school plays as well. So I guess like part of selling yourself is acting, it's overcoming that imposter syndrome. It's like really believing that like the work that you put forward is going to pay off. And so in that way, like, yeah, like that's entrepreneurship, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so getting back to your career, you're starting these build from scratch efforts. I'm curious, what was most surprising about those types of efforts that maybe you didn't realize having come from something that was a little more built out at Metadata?
Yeah, I think what was interesting is like I joined Newton right after Medidata, and they were going through like a large structural change. And so, kind of pivoting from one strategy to another, and it's like a very drastic change. So I was kind of thrown into the mix to like spearhead a lot of the process for the new strategy. And I had to do it with very little support because there was no process for this new strategy, you know, and like people didn't know what it should look like at the end of the day. So I think that was definitely surprising, but like, you know, you figure it out. And the people that worked at Newton are incredibly intelligent. So, like, collaborating with them, brainstorming with them, that really set me up to like do a good job.
Yeah, that's sort of the beauty and the curse of the startup is like there's nothing there. So you get to learn through making it. You make some mistakes, you go faster, but at times challenging. That resonates with me quite a bit because I worked at Google before starting this company. A little different in size and scope, I would say. So,
Definitely.
what surprised you the most? I'm always curious to hear about people's introduction to leadership. You grew, multiple RevOps organizations at some point move into leadership. What was that like for you to transition from building this stuff as an IC and then getting into leadership roles?
Well, at first it's amazing. Like you have help, right? So I'm doing so much work by myself. It's like great to have someone to hand stuff off to. So that was just such a relief when I started managing folks. And that's really the way that I manage teams is like I grow them when like I'm way over capacity and I like know things in and out, and that's when I have to transition to someone else. So like that was amazing in terms of leading people. I think what was a really fun and exciting thing to learn is like how to mentor them, coach them, and then like lift them up in their careers. And that's been really rewarding to see like my employees go on to do amazing things like in different professions, as well as like, you know, some of them are still in RevOps, but like definitely like getting into more strategic roles and having a seat at the table and doing analyses, leading presentations, things like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I really like that answer of like, I hire people when I need help. It's like a very practical way of just like thinking about the distribution of work and like when it's time. So I enjoy
Mhm.
that. Okay, so you're now in senior leadership role at Dscout. Awesome company. You've seen RevOps at a few other companies. What's changed the most about your approach to RevOps from when you get that first gig at Medidata to where you are today?
So the industry has changed like crazy. I was actually in sales ops at Medidata. They didn't even have revenue operations as a concept. So that's one big change is like kind of coalescing all of the operational groups from GTM into one org. So that's been really cool. The other thing is just like the rapid pace at which like technology has been developed to support people in my function. I've been able to like use so many different tools that give me insight into my sales pipeline, that automate processes that I used to do by hand. And so, like, I feel like, you know, I was in it when we had to do everything manually. So I really understand, like, the analytics and the processes that need to be done. But, like, you don't have to do it that way anymore. You could like click a button and it's done. So that's been really crazy to see.
I need to have you start selling our territory design software. That's basically what I tell people. So I'm curious, obviously the world of the tech under you has been shifting the whole time. And now like that pace is accelerating, many would argue. How do you keep your eyes up on what new tech is available, keep yourself educated on it while also handling your busy day to day, managing people, getting the stuff you need to do done?
So I really truly believe in community, and that's across all parts of my life. So like, you know, music, activism, and like definitely revenue operations. So I'm involved with two revenue operations communities, the RevOps Co-op and the RevOps Alliance. I do a lot of work with them. I attend their conferences, and what I love about their events is that we have folks that have experienced a lot of the same issues that I have. Because sales is definitely hard. RevOps is definitely hard. Like we're often like unsung heroes. People only notice things when they break.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of like positive feedback loop that like I would really benefit from. But like in these communities, you really get that, and you get that empathy and support from each other. And also like they demonstrate like what's worked for them and what hasn't worked for them, and like what technology they're using. And so like those kind of cross learning initiatives have been really, really great.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We're part of all those communities, and I think the like blend between kind of like open source and just putting stuff out there is like super positive right now. When we think about RevOps going forward, what are you most curious about for the development of the role or the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to change. Obviously, AI has been a big innovation in the last couple of years, and I've seen like some of the analyses that I used to do by hand automated, which is great because I would spend a lot of time on that. And like, so now I can just read it and like get the insights and be consultative in my approach. So that's been awesome to watch. I want to see that develop further. I want to see RevOps as a very strategic function as opposed to very tactical.
I think that makes a lot of sense. You had a great quote, which I think is originally from Samuel Beckett: "To find a form that accommodates the mess, that is the task of the artist now." Can I ask you to compare that to RevOps?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of the times people come to me with a problem. So they'll say, like, I need to be able to track something a certain way, and we don't have any way to do that today. So it's kind of like building something out of nothing. Like, we don't have any data, we don't know what's working and what's not working. We have to even like discover what it is that we need to find out. So, people come to me with very vague problems, and it is my job and my team's job to do that scoping to really identify exactly what they need and build it for them. And that's like start to finish. So like scoping, design, implementation, QA, launch, and training. So there's a lot of steps, and all of it starts with like, someone saying I need help with something. So really like organizing initiatives off of like something very chaotic.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Is there a specific resource you recommend to people who are new to RevOps, someone joining your team? You say, go here, read this, follow this Twitter account, whatever it is. That's your go-to for RevOps info.
Yeah. So Jeremy Donovan is a influencer for sales ops and rev ops, and he has a really, really good rev ops playbook. And it's kind of a gold mine of like forecasting sheets he uses, and like demand gen programs that he's launched, kind of like a best practices guide. So that one's really good. I obviously mentioned the RevOps Alliance and the RevOps Co-op. I think they have some programs like that. So I think like a SaaS metrics boot camp is probably useful, anything that you can read about that. But really getting into Salesforce and seeing what's important to reps, like looking at the top fields and top dashboards that we're reviewing, that's really where I tell a new hire to start.
No, that makes a lot of sense. All right, I'm gonna shift back to the personal side a little bit. I saw you're involved with Children of Promise NYC. I was wondering if you just talk about that a little bit. I was looking into it. It looks like an awesome organization.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Children of Promise NYC, it is a wonderful organization here in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. They provide after-school services, mental health programs, and summer camp for kids who have an incarcerated parent. These kids suffer a lot of stigma with having their parents in prison. They have a lot of anger. They have a lot of, they're completely like disregarded as a group. So bringing them together and providing them with these resources has made a lot of positive impact in their life because, they're able to process their feelings in a way that's productive. So I've been working with them to do a lot of fundraising, but they have a Saturday resource center where we help with tutoring and summer camps where they play basketball and things like that. So Yeah, it's a great organization, and I think they opened a Bronx location as well last year, so it is growing as well.
Are you tutoring in math?
Yeah, I'll tutor in whatever they've asked me to tutor in, but math is my strong suit.
Nice. Full circle. I love that. Okay, my final question is what is a book or a piece of content, poem, a piece of music, whatever. I can't be go to market related that you find yourself recommending to everyone you meet.
A book or piece of content that I recommend to everyone. So there is a musician that I'm into right now. He's called Daryl Amont. He's like up and coming Dominican musician. He's from New Jersey and he just put out an album that's just incredible. So that's what I've recently been recommending to people.
That's awesome. It's my very selfish question to just get all these recommendations out at the end of these calls from really smart people. But Aparna, thank you so much for doing this. We'd love to talk to you again sometime. I'm grateful to you for spending the time. We'll put a link in the show notes to Children of Promise. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you down the road at one of these conferences.
Thanks so much, Kevin. This was great.